With their family feuds raging, Meghan and Harry had Brooklyn Beckham and his wife Nicola Peltz over for dinner last week. Now, millions of us are harbouring just one cherished wish. Oh, to have been a fly on the wall. Like the runaway prince's sad son, Brooklyn is bitterly estranged from his relatives in Britain and no longer talks to his father. According to reports, the two couples found a lot of common ground and, I quote, shared the trauma of their toxic family feuds. Harry, we're told, offered Brooklyn his unwavering support. How David Beckham must have loved learning of this secret summit at the Sussex's Montecito mansion. In other bad news, already the dim Duke was not exactly Britain's favourite guy, but after his disastrous spoilt brat interview on the BBC following the inevitable failure of his ill-advised legal battle to get armed police protection in the UK, a new poll reveals that the declining arc of Harry's popularity has accelerated into a high-speed plummet. It's not only the king who's had enough of the petulant prince. The British people are sick to death of him. But hang on, hold the front page. Meghan has sensationally disclosed that she's too busy to cook for her husband and kids. But she's great at making their takeaways look beautiful. Wow. So does this mean that as well as a full-time nanny, the down-to-earth Sussexes also employ a chef? You decide. Meanwhile, when the time comes, it seems that Harry is unlikely to attend his hated sibling William's coronation. More to the point, given the mother of all brotherly conflicts, sulky old Ginger Nuts is unlikely to be invited. Moving on. On the last blockbuster edition of What Just Happened, I asked the key question: has Meghan ruined Harry? Now that the once carefree, fun-loving prince has turned into a miserable moaner, lashing out from the depths of his paranoia at a world he thinks is conspiring against him, there can be no doubt that the answer is an emphatic yes. But how has the difficult Duchess destroyed the happy-go-lucky, likely lad that we once knew and loved? I think it's this. She has sucked him into the corrosive quicksand of her all-consuming victimhood. And I'm not alone. Canon Angela Tilby, whose services Harry attended when he was a schoolboy at the UK's top private school, Eton, and who attended his beloved mum Diana's funeral, fears for the likeable youngster who grew up to be an unlikable, whinging adult. In an article in the Church Times, the concerned priest urged the downbeat Duke to, and I quote, give up the role of victimhood, adding, I grieve for the ginger-topped teenager I once preached to. I believe he is a decent man, but so far he has found no way to switch off the trauma in his head. She got that right. Just like his wife, hapless Harry has become a deeply depressing professional victim. Nothing is his fault. He didn't lose his long legal battle because he's a stubborn half-wit who refused to accept that his fatuous case was a forlorn no-hoper from the start. He lost it, he insisted to the BBC, because he was the victim of a classic establishment stitch-up. He's the victim of a conspiracy between his father, the king, and shadowy government figures who want him dead. The royal family, especially William and Kate, didn't develop reservations about Meghan because of the way she bullied palace staff. She was simply the victim of royal racism. All of this is nonsense, of course, the type of fantastical claptrap to which the only sensible response can be, yeah, right. This is the deranged reasoning of a tormented man who believes everyone is out to get him. King Charles and his clan are not racists, and quite obviously no one wants him dead. The sad truth is that, in the great scheme of things, Harry and Meghan have become an irrelevant sideshow that no longer matters much. We watch the soap opera of their strange lives on the California coast with car crash interest. What the hell do this preposterous pair think they're doing? But that's about it. As we're only too well aware, Meghan has always been a mad, keen player of the victim card. The nasty Brits who took against her because of the colour of her skin. The social media lynch mob who are so unconscionably cruel to her. The journalist haters who keep writing about what a bully she is. All the negative media coverage she gets has nothing to do with her. It's not her personality. It's not her behaviour. And it's definitely not her ruthless ambition. Right? Yeah, right.
This I read in the Telegraph this morning about the Beckhams. You're going to tell us more about this. The headline is How Brooklyn Joined Prince Harry in the Fight Back Against Their Perfect Families. I read this morning. So this is about Brooklyn and Harry teaming up, having dinner, discussing the similarities between their families. Yeah. And I just thought, you two spoiled, rich idiots.
I mean, you couldn't make it up, could you?
No.
Showbiz.
Do you want to just explain it? Because there's a picture here, isn't there, of the extended Beckham family here.
Yes.
And just what is going on under this? So this is after Brooklyn Beckham skipped his father's 50th birthday party. They thought the family might come together.
Yes.
It doesn't look like
there's tons of this. You know, Mother's Day, they were the only people who didn't reach out and say what a great mother Victoria Beckham is. Look, there's lots of... We don't know for certain, and there's lots of people with different speculations, but it would seem that when Brooklyn got together with Nicola, it would seem that she has kind of driven a wedge in between the family happiness.
Similar with Harry and Meghan.
Well, exactly.
Yes.
But although today's claims are that it's Meghan and Nicola who formed a bond at a recent dinner party.
Not Harry and Brooklyn.
Exactly that. So this is the current thing, that it was actually them two getting together. No. And it's been leaked that they were at this kind of, you know, the homewreckers get together, if you know what I mean. That's what it's being told. But also, I mean, I spoke about this with Alex last week. There's rumours that it's actually Romeo, who's the youngest son, and his girlfriend that caused the latest spate of problems with apparently... She's not good enough for the family and stuff. So it would seem that they were a right mess, that family. I mean, it's nice to know, isn't it? You can have all the money in the world and the glitz and the glamour and the opportunities, and yet you could still be... families are difficult. Families are very difficult.
I think also the thing is that they've got so much money that they have no sense of purpose. So these kids... So what I read into this, Brooklyn and Harry are similar in that they have absolutely no sense of purpose, and so therefore they're sort of drifting around trying to think that they're important. I mean, when Harry was good and looked after the veterans, then great.
Yes.
But then again, with Brooklyn Beckham, what do you do when your parents are so successful and so wealthy?
But he started off OK. He did those disastrous cooking videos.
Yeah.
People were interested. He seemed that before she came along, it would seem that things were quite sweet within the family unit. It's only actually something's happened in the last couple of years.
It's the wife.
It's her family, I think, and
it's
his family. It's the wife.
It's the wife.
It's the wife.
Yeah.
I think the topic of the week, we discussed this the other week, is still, the other night, is still the seventh anniversary of Harry and Meghan's wedding, which of course was here on a beautiful cloudless sky day, sun shining, May the 18th, wasn't it? Or was it May the 19th? 2018. It's so bizarre that she posted on Instagram that mood board of all the high points of their relationship, as she called it, our love story, and never mentioned Harry. I mean, I think she's so consumed with herself. She's almost beginning to forget that she's got this ginger husband. You know, he is playing such a small role in her life, it seems to me. He's almost a sideshow. What do you think is going on here?
Well, or was that post all just for show because she knew no one else, she knew the royal family wasn't going to acknowledge it. In fact, there were all sorts of stories that were circulating in the days leading up to the anniversary about how the royal family planned to ignore it on social media. And here in the States, it's being reported by tabloids that Meghan quietly canceled plans to celebrate their 7th wedding anniversary at home with Prince Harry because they don't have that many friends left. So that I thought alarming. This woman that's trying to sell us this image of herself that she's always planning parties at home for her and her friends, and she's going above and beyond because she wants to elevate everything with flower petals that you can choke on later in your ice. Actually had to to quote the Radar, quietly cancel plans because they just have no one to invite these days.
Now, she put on that mood board pictures of the kids, actually. I think one of them, you can actually see one of the kids' faces. And by the way, there was a full frontal picture, I think, of Archie before he was born. There's a picture of that kid in the womb. So these are her highlights. There's pictures of her and Harry kissing and this kind of thing, you know, all very, very saccharine. But actually, if you think about it, these are the special memorable moments that we've enjoyed in our sensational 7 years together and all that. But actually, if you think about these 7 years since they got married, what we didn't realise was back on May the 19th, 2018, that was a fantastic ceremony, a breathtaking event, watched by more than 1 billion TV viewers all over the world. Fabulous, fabulous, fabulous. And we all thought, this couple, this golden couple, world at their feet, what can possibly go wrong? Well, ever since then, pretty much everything's gone wrong. But what we didn't realise was that fabulous, spectacular ceremony, that was the high. Ever since then, they've been going downhill. She hated being in Britain. She hated being a royal, a working royal. And then she staged that Megxit, taking Harry in tow, fleeing Britain under a cloud because the Queen had launched an inquiry, an investigation into her bullying palace staff. That was the beginning of it. And ever since then, basically, it has been downhill all the way, hasn't it? I mean, they haven't really put a foot right. Their 7 years, I mean, I don't know whether they're happy personally, but we have seen basically a catastrophic comedy of errors ever since they got married and then ran away to California. Something really bad about this relationship. It hasn't worked out, has it?
Clearly, these two don't believe in omens. Or, like, 7 red flags ago, they should have probably sat down and had a very serious talk. Yeah, well, you mentioned the pictures of the kids. Like, you know, we're supposed to be surprised that we actually saw their faces. I just got into a fight with Liz Jones about this on Daily Mail. Daily Mail, who was talking about how much Meghan is... how one day her children will appreciate how much they protected her. She was talking about Meghan protecting the children and how we don't see their faces, you know, and I said, actually, we see plenty of these two in the Harry and Meghan docuseries available on Netflix to stream right now in its entirety, hours and hours of these children and their faces. When it comes to the right price, Meghan Markle is happy to share images of her children. And right now her brand is at such a decline that she is going to use pictures of them to try to garner attention for herself and her brand and to try to control the narrative. But Meghan is willing to show pictures of her kids. I think it just depends on how many zeros are at the end of the check. And talking about the happiness of these two, I think we can both agree on the fact that this is something that drives Prince Harry absolutely crazy. The teasing of the children. Will they, won't they? How much we get to see of them. I think if it were up to Prince Harry, he would shut them away for good, and we wouldn't see them because he does not think it's fair to them. And if we believe him at his word, he's truly concerned about their security.
Absolutely. And talking of happiness, it's quite clear Prince Harry is not happy. He's a very unhappy man. He made that obvious during that awful interview, that spoilt brat interview he gave 2-3 weeks ago after he lost his long legal battle to get armed police protection when he's in Britain. He was, he was like a spoilt brat that didn't get his own way, throwing his toys out of the pram, but revealing along the way. He's a deeply, deeply unhappy guy. There's no doubt about that. And incredibly paranoid. But earlier I listed, and you'll be able to fill in a few of the gaps, Kinsey. I know some of the outrageous events that have peppered their 7 years together. So we just talked about running away from Britain, Meghan under a cloud, being investigated for bullying staff, Harry, by so doing, by following her, making without a doubt the biggest, greatest mistake of his life, giving up the life he was born to, and now he looks like a forlorn individual who knows what he's left behind, who knows what he's lost. So that was a big mistake. Then, of course, this preposterous pair sitting down, giving that interview, that awful interview to Oprah Winfrey, calling the royal family racists, falsely calling them racist. Then, of course, announcing, this sort of pompous announcement that they were going to become, the greatest charity benefactors on earth. How's that working out for them? The puffed up prince, enraging Americans. You remember this when he announced that America's one of the best things about America, by the way, one of the many great things about America, your fabulous First Amendment enshrining freedom of speech. Americans take it very seriously, freedom of speech, and I love them for it. And Harry called the First Amendment bonkers. How dare he? Also, of course, making a fool of himself at stupid Hollywood awards ceremonies, accepting from John Travolta an award as a legend of aviation. He's not a legend of aviation. And of course, his horrible book Spare, lifting the lid on King Charles and his clan's most intimate secrets for cash. Meghan bullying staff atrociously in the trenches of Montecito, all of them leaving in their droves, calling themselves the Sussex Survivors Clubs, telling these stories of trauma, how she was a tyrant in high heels, who's prone to tantrums in the middle of the night, and so on and so forth. Prince Harry's ludicrous war against the press, British press especially, this blizzard of lawsuits, saying he's going to, declare war on the press, a war he can never win. They basically, and then of course that shocking interview just a few weeks ago with the BBC, revealing he doesn't talk to his dad anymore, and accusing his dad of colluding, conspiring with shady government figures over here to have him dead. They want him dead. I mean, the horrors of these 7 years, their behaviour over 7 years, when you add it all up, when you tot it all up, it's extraordinary, it's atrocious.
Life is hard, but life doesn't have to be that hard. And the majority of the difficulties these two have faced over the last few years, specifically the last 5 years, have been from their own doing, have been consequences of their own actions. They are entirely self-serving. They are selfish individuals that are completely obsessed with not only their narrative and their truth, but obsessed with vengeance. And it's only been in since 2025 that we have seen Meghan try to move in a different direction. And she tells us constantly how she's pursuing joy. In fact, she's ruined the word for me. And it's hard for us to swallow that pill when we have seen such bitterness from the pair. Meghan's first interview with The Cut, where she gloated about stumbling upon some diaries that she'd left at Frogmore, and how she did not have to sign an NDA when she left the British royal family. Even some means, I think she accidentally makes some comments today to let us know that she still resents that time in her life, despite trying to sell us tea bags. She will talk about trenches, being in the trenches with Prince Harry. So, it's hard for us to buy this new and improved version of Meghan, not just because Prince Harry appears on international television, looking like he's about to have a psychological break, but also because we know based on repetition that this isn't actually who she truly is.
Exactly right. And of course, there is this the other side to them when they said, you know, they were going to be two of the world's great philanthropists setting up this Archewell Foundation. Well, we know that Archewell Foundation doesn't do very much at all.
Well, don't they donate to Ashley Biden?
Yeah, apart from that,
Donate to Ashley Biden. But also remember when they said, I loved when they left the British royal family and they told us that they were going to only be working with up and coming young grassroots media personalities and entities because they were tired of the royal rota system. And who's in their pocket today? People magazine. Not exactly who I would consider an up and coming publication, or you know, they are a part of the system. They are a part of the exact system that Harry and Meghan criticize constantly.
Exactly. And as I say, Tina Brown, of course, only recently said, well, you know, they talk about doing good. They've always talked about doing good. And she put the very valid question, exactly what good do they do? Now, they recently attended a big event hosted by the very big magazine in America, Time magazine. And it was about, it was for the most influential people on earth.
Another grassroots marketing media entity, I want to remind you.
Now, you know what they're up to, because I think they fancy getting on Time's prestigious list of the world's 100 greatest philanthropists. Well, that list has just come out. It's called the Time 100 Philanthropy list. 100 people who are the most generous charity benefactors on the earth. And a certain Duke and Duchess, despite sucking up to Time magazine a couple of weeks ago, attending their party, are conspicuous by their absence. They are not in the world's top 100 philanthropists, and why would they be? The last accounts for the Archewell Foundation were that revealed that they had about $5.7 million worth of donations last year, 5 million of which came from one source. The rest of the donations were just 700,000, which is nothing. And the word is that 5 million was donated by Harry himself. That's just the allegation. We don't know the truth of it, but it was donated by Harry himself in order to cover up for the embarrassment of a charity foundation that no one's interested in and no one's donating to. And it's
also nice.
It's not doing any good either, is it?
Nice tax write-off too. Like, let's not act like when Prince Harry donates money, it's not just for out of the good of his heart. It's also because he has 16 bathrooms he has to pay for.
Yeah, exactly right.
But I wish I would have. I had this conversation, a debate with Dr. Tessa Dunlop, who is another royal commentator, yesterday. Afterwards, I was done, and I realized I wish I would have made the point. Tessa said, you know, William and Catherine, you can't compare to Harry and Meghan because William and Catherine have devoted their life to service, and Harry and Meghan are entertainers / philanthropists. Well, I wish I would have said, God love you, Tessa. Oprah Winfrey is three people down from Harry and Meghan. From Kate and William. David Beckham right underneath Catherine and Prince William. The reality is you can do both. You can be both. Harry and Meghan are just flailing, and they aren't as focused in their objectives, whether it be, am I selling a podcast? Am I selling a preserve? Am I selling a book? Do I want to do polo? Do I want to, you know, when it comes to strategy and the choreography of a brand, Harry and Meghan are completely lost. So yes, William and Catherine you can compare them to Harry and Meghan, even if Harry and Meghan are in this commercial world, because David Beckham is in the commercial world and made this list. Oprah Winfrey, friends of Harry and Meghan, in the commercial world, and still made this list. I think it's a fair comparison. I think it's fair to acknowledge that this is a loss for Harry and Meghan, and that this is it's not a snub. They just need to work harder.
Yeah, and you know, Tessa told you, oh, these two are philanthropists. Well, they're not philanthropists. Meghan's not a philanthropist. She's busy trying to flog sort of thin gruel jam spread for $14 a jar. That enterprise, as I told you last week, having now tried the produce, that ain't going to work. People are not going to go back a second time to buy honey that costs $28 or non-jam $14. Cookie mix, the cookie dough that costs $14. You know that I made those cookies and it's damn hard anyway. People aren't going to go back again. That is going to fail. I predict, Kinsey, that the next story about these two will be financial, that their financial struggles may become apparent because they've got a very expensive lifestyle and not much coming in. You know, Harry's got royal money, but they are living a billionaire's lifestyle and they have not got a billionaire income going on.
I agree with you, and one of the main reasons I agree with you about their finances is that you talked about those bully reports. I talked about, you know, these stories we hear repeatedly about Meghan, that you hear them so often that it's hard to dismiss them. Meghan is a control freak. If Meghan could own, control, and take care of everything herself, she absolutely would. The idea that Netflix is a quote-unquote partner to Meghan Markle's brand tells me that Meghan needs them. She needs them, because if she could, she would run the whole show. She has a hard time collaborating with people.
Yes, she certainly does. Let's talk a little bit about With Love, Meghan. We've got that second series coming up. We learned that Harry, he made a fleeting appearance in the first series that not many people watched. And the reason they didn't watch it was toweringly tedious, very, very boring. He's not going to be in the next one at all. So just strikes me that Harry, you know, he was so upset about being a spare in the royal family, the man who never would be king. He's now a spare in that marriage, isn't he? He's playing a bit part. She takes centre stage. He's simpering in the wings. He just seems to be playing a more and more minor role in his wife's life.
Well, he's not busy. He's not too busy.
It's true.
I'm sitting here patiently waiting every single day for him to release some sort of statement about the African Parks charity scandal, beating a drum about it, because I just think it's so vile that he doesn't acknowledge it. He stepped away from Senebale. I haven't seen him play a polo tournament in quite some time, haven't seen him surfing. So I really don't know what he does. I know that he does small, intimate conferences for BetterUp. And that has upset some of the people that have paid to be a part of them, because a lot of them aren't accessible online. He will only talk to the few people that are in the room. And I don't know if that is an anxiety issue or if that's them trying to control the brand. I'm really not sure. But his reach has decreased. His influence barely, if at all, exists anymore. And but I also think that he doesn't love this path that Meghan has pursued. If she wants to pursue it, go ahead. But it's not something that he's eager to be a part of. So there has to be some frustration there, and there has to be some, you know, straight up loneliness for Prince Harry these days.
Well, that's what he looked like in that interview that he gave to the BBC. I think it was now 3 weeks ago. He looked like a lonely man. He looked like a desperate man. He quite clearly has got kind of almost a psychopathic paranoia going on. He believes the world is conspiring against him. His dad, the king, is colluding with shady government figures. They want him dead. All this nonsense, this paranoid nonsense. He looks like a sad man. He looks like he's lost in a country where he doesn't belong. And he's a guy, he's got no direction home. His family don't talk to him, he doesn't talk to them. There's going to be no repairing of that feud, by the way, no repairing. So he needs a purpose in life. You know, Meghan's got all her sad little projects that I don't think will work, but at least she's trying. He needs a purpose in life because, you know, we can see he hasn't been doing anything. He doesn't do anything.
Well, the last episode of Meghan Markle's podcast is on Tuesday.
Oh, hang on a second. Let me write that down because, you know, I just can wait. But
Yeah.
who's this one with? Who's this one with?
We don't know yet, but it's probably someone else I've never heard of. I think that we'll see how quickly she commits to a season 2. Limonada, there's more in it for Limonada than there is for Meghan, likely, because Limonada was a small podcasting company we'd never heard of before Meghan Markle. So I think that they will allow her to continue to stick to their production company, whatever. But I'm curious to see how quickly she does transition into a season 2, because I don't care what she tells us when she's sitting on Jamie Kern-Lima's podcast. I think she lacks when it comes to a work ethic, and what she's been doing over the last few months has probably been hard for someone who prior to this had not worked for 4 solid years.
I mean, God knows what lies ahead for Harry. And frankly, I think Meghan faces an uncertain future as well, because as I keep saying, I don't see her business is going to work. We know Confessions of a Female Founder has been a disaster. You know, that's because it's so boring. It's so boring. And so is With Love, Meghan. Really, really tedious. You know, as we discussed before, you know, giving us recipes for ice cubes, that kind of thing. We don't need that. And there's going to be a second series, but after that, God knows what both of them will be doing. I mean, you know, people say, oh, why do you keep obsessing on them? I'm not going to lie. I find them fascinating. But why do we find them fascinating? It's because I
want to hold them accountable. I want to hold them accountable because I think that they are dishonest and I think that they are mean to people. And I'm not obsessed with them. They get on my nerves and I just want to hold them accountable because they are not honest about the way that they behave, about the way that they treat people, and about how the way people treat them.
You're right. There's a fundamental dishonesty about them. That's a really, really good point. As I say, I'm not obsessed with them, but I do find them fascinating. And the reason I find them fascinating is I'm compelled to watch them like you watch a car crash. This is a car crash soap opera, a real-life soap opera unfolding before our very eyes. And we don't know what the ending is, but I suspect it won't be a happy ending. And so my last question to you is 7 years. They've been married 7 years. You know that phrase, the 7-year itch, where couples tend to split up. I don't know whether they'll do it this year, but I do not hold up high hopes for the future of that marriage. I think with her track record, of dropping people when she feels they're no longer useful to her. Her first husband, who she ruthlessly dumped by sending him his engagement ring and wedding ring by WhatsApp. He go, what's this? Oh, I've been dumped. Her family, her father, her brother and her sister. She dumps people. She drops them from her life when she feels they're no longer any use to her. And I can't, for the life of me, quite see what use Harry is to her anymore. Could be bad news for Harry. What do you reckon? 7-year itch, 8-year itch, 9-year itch? What do you reckon, Kinsey?
I truly don't know. I think all I know is that when it happens, Harry is going to have he's not going to be welcomed back immediately with open arms in the UK. So I'm sure he's dreading, if he ever contemplates that decision, he's dreading the consequences, because he truly will be lost. He truly will feel like he has no place to go. And for the people that say we're obsessed, we do need to hold these two accountable, because they, at the end of the day, will be historical figures. And they have accused the royal family of racism, and that is simply not true. And that, we need to stand up and we need to defend these people because it's important to history.
It is. And you're right. They need to be held up to judgment, because there is a fundamental dishonesty. Meghan in particular. Look how happy we are. Here's my mood board. No mention of your husband. I'm a wonderful person. What about all the people
I'm a great mom.
Yeah.
I'm such a good mom.
Yeah.
My kids love me.
Yeah, I'm not a bully. Well, yeah, you are. It's obvious you are a bully. I'm a great friend. I'm a great mum. Everybody loves me. No, they don't. No, they don't.
Washington Becks on the front page of the Sun this morning. Rather nice picture of them inside meeting the king and the king of what was the football world, I suppose. Meeting up at the Chelsea Flower Show. Apparently, gifts were exchanged for Beck's 50th birthday party.
Yeah, roses. A special rose, the King's Rose, and he went to the Chelsea Flower Show yesterday. Obviously, one of the biggest flower shows in the world. And the King going there. He's a very keen gardener, as we all know. And Bex has now got, excuse me, has got into the gardening. We've seen him beekeeping, talking Instagram, talking to his roses, talking to his chickens. So he's a bit of a country bumpkin. Oh.
Yes. You're right down there, Rupert. Do you need time for a glass of water? I can.
Well, I'm all right now. I'm back on track here. Apologies for that.
That's
but
right.
The fact of the matter is they are good friends now, and they see quite a lot of each other.
Yeah.
He's been working with the King's Foundation. But it is interesting. We're seeing this sort of playing out. Bex is meeting the King, while Meghan and Harry are meeting Bex's estranged son, Brooklyn. I mean, it's all... it's a slightly strange world we're living in at the moment, of these estranged families also wanting to grab all the headlines, while Bex goes about his business meeting the King. Obviously, he's very keen to get a knighthood, I think, at some stage. But, he is a PR machine, and they do genuinely seem to like each other. And it is quite interesting the way it's all playing out. Both Harry and Meghan and Brooklyn and his wife basically say that they've not been treated well by their respective parents, and that Bex and Posh, their PR guy, is basically belying what's really a pretty strange, dysfunctional family. This is what he says. So it's all a bit unsavoury, but the people in California seem to now be getting together and swapping stories, it would seem, about how they've been mistreated. Oh, my dear, these billionaire children have been
Isn't it
mistreated.
shocking? Because I noticed from the Sunday Times rich list at the weekend that the Posh and Beck's fortune has absolutely ballooned. It started off, I think, a few years ago with a few million, 20 million or something. It's now 550 million quid's worth, their business, apparently.
Well, you've got to admire him since football. And actually, fashion industry is not easy to make money. So I think it's the good work of, obviously, Posh. She comes with sort of regular income, I'm sure, from whatever during her time in the Spice Girls and a bit of music. But the fashion industry is an expensive one to be involved in. Yet here, but Beckham just seems to be a PR machine, and continuing to be so. Hence the reason why they're worth so much money. They had a successful Netflix documentary, in contrast to the one produced by Meghan and Harry. Although that was big numbers, it didn't get the awards that the Posh and Becks one, which was a PR masterclass on how to do a documentary and sort of confront the issues. But my goodness me, they sugar-coated some of the stories that have obviously affected them over the years.
Well, this picture will infuriate the old Montecito massive, won't it? They'll be looking at, there's your, they'll be saying to Brooklyn Beckham, there's your dad cozying up to the King, that horrible racist man, oh no, sorry, we didn't mean that. And they're sort of fellow travellers because, as you say, they feel terribly badly treated. But the truth of the matter is that, the men, both Brooklyn Beckham and Prince Harry, are men who have been sort of led astray by these rather grasping wives of theirs, and as a result, they've fallen out with their own families.
Well,
that's the truth, isn't it?
Yeah, it would seem. Well, it is the truth. They have fallen out. Brooklyn Beckham's wife is the daughter of a hugely rich billionaire in America, and yet I think she's been dabbling at being an actress, and Brooklyn's been dabbling at various things. I'm told he's been over. He gets signed up to do the odd expensive media campaigns. He's claiming to be a bit of a cook, and if you look at it, Brooklyn says he's a bit of a cook, and Meghan says she's a bit of a cook. So I imagine they're exchanging flower sprinkles.
No doubt. I don't think I'd want to go round to either one of their houses for dinner, judging by the way I've seen what they cook, because I've seen Brooklyn Beckham's attempts at cooking, and he's not much better than she is.
Well, yeah, so I'm sure they in their beautifully fitted out kitchen, they obviously swap tales of what they do in the kitchen. And obviously Meghan's got another of her podcasts that comes out as she's interviewed another, this time a very successful businesswoman, Cassandra Thurswell, who runs a company called Kitsch, which I think is fairly appropriate for them, if you see what I mean, because I would have to say Brooklyn and Nikki are definitely very kitsch. But this woman is a genuine successful businesswoman. But the early indications, again, it's all about Meghan saying how she is building up a business and talking in this sort of cliche way that she does. So it's, I have to say, this series of podcasts from Meghan are so dull, so self-absorbed, but what else do you expect?
I know, absolutely ridiculous. Meanwhile, it's their 7th wedding anniversary, right? Sun did a big piece up the other day of the 7-year itch. She's decided, in her wisdom, to put out a massive Instagram, basically it's a sort of collection of photos, a photo montage featuring treasured and at times highly personal family pictures charting their love story. I mean, for somebody who likes privacy, this is quite a revelation, isn't it?
She has, they want privacy, but they want the media. And this is why the hypocrisy is writ large with Meghan and Harry. And that is the problem. They want one thing, but they want everything on their terms. Yeah. And that is, and even at the wedding, she talks about how, it's a real love story. It's a fairy tale. That's what she's trying to create, that this is a fairy tale love story between these two. But at the moment, Harry looks rudderless. He's got problems with his various charities. Yeah. He's not, I don't know what he's got to do. Meghan obviously is trying to push on with her various businesses and her cooking program, which I have to say again, you made me watch, Mike, and it was, thank you for that.
No, my pleasure.
I've just felt so privileged when you made the call and said, could you take one for the team? And so I did, Mike. But here we go. But she is trying, at least, whether it's going well or not is debatable, but at least she seems to have things going on. Whereas I'm not actually sure what Harry's got sort of cooking at the moment in terms of long-term prospects. Because Sentibali's up the swolly at the moment.
Suing everybody. He's got nobody to talk to anymore, because, I mean, at least he used to keep himself occupied probably talking to lawyers about 4 hours a day. Now he doesn't even get to do that.
No, he's not. And it is, look, he's involved with Invictus Games, which will be interesting because it's next staged in Birmingham.
Oh, yeah. I hope they got rid of the rats by then.
Well, there might be. It's going to be at the NEC, and I know what the plans are. It's going to be fantastic. Well, it should be fantastic. Rats, hopefully, will have been sorted out.
That would be
good. But will Meghan come for that? I mean, because of the security issues. Well, it's the security issue is such smoke and mirrors. Yet you see other members of the royal family who are non-working royals just getting on with it. Beatrice and Eugenie just get on with their, occasionally doing a few public duties or go and get involved in causes, but there's not a great security arrangement around there. I mean, it's, again, just something I just don't understand why Harry can't just switch a light bulb on, or maybe there just isn't one to switch on. That may be part of the problem.
I think
and just realise which is one of the problems. And he should be coming back here. But unfortunately, he's created a rod for his own back. And obviously, I don't think his wife is desperate to come here at all. So it's a convenient excuse, I'm absolutely sure.
Well, that definitely suits me.
This story comes out, I immediately think of you. I want to immediately start tearing into this person, but I thought I'd hold on to it until we actually spoke, because I know that you know how much of a terror Chrissy Teigen is. And the idea that Meghan Markle, that's the big name Meghan Markle has for season 2 of With Love, Meghan, does that just confuse you beyond all comprehension from a PR perspective, to place these two women, allegedly notorious bullies, next to each other, two women that are trying to fight this narrative? Doesn't that just enhance everyone's mind? Like in our minds, aren't we looking at these two standing next to each other going, Satan spawn and Satan spawn's BFF? There's just, I can't imagine a publicist going, this sounds like a great idea.
I agree with you completely, as always. As in 99% of the time, I agree with you, Kenzie. But we're not talking about normal people here. We are talking about two desperate fame whores who married men to elevate their own stature. You know, Chrissy Teigen has no talent. Like, I talked about this on The Nerve, actually, the last episode. Like, she was famous for a minute because people would be like, oh, wow, isn't she so clever on social media? Like, isn't she so funny? And then it came out that she was bullying a young starlet named Courtney Stodden, both on the open internet and then sliding into her DMs and saying, you should kill yourself. Okay, I don't know the exact wording, but she was saying, you should go kill yourself.
Yeah.
Okay, that's somebody, you are a sick individual if that's how you get your kicks. Okay.
Yes.
So Chrissy Teigen, I think, is human garbage. She's garbage.
She is garbage.
And Meghan Markle, who, you know, someone just emailed me and was reminding me to reread the Australian coverage of Harry and Meghan's official royal tour in Australia and the hissy fits she was throwing. And, you know, the hot beverage that allegedly found itself smacking an assistant in the body, in the face, I don't know where. You know, so there are two bullies who are desperate to be considered America's America's best friend among a cohort of females who they believe are easily influenced to purchase their garbage. They're garbage.
Yeah. When it comes to Meghan and Harry, I feel like, because I might have put it in our show notes, I probably did, but the idea that they're polling the worst they've ever polled, I'm sure that there are some sort of crisis management meetings that happen regularly where they try to determine how to change public perception. I mean, in the last few years, the joke has always been like, another rebrand for Meghan, another rebrand for Harry and Meghan, another rebrand. But I wonder if one of the reasons that people just refuse to change course on their thoughts about Harry and Meghan, aside from the fact that they hate them and they're probably right for it, is because they don't, their actions don't follow their words. You are just campaigning in New York to keep children off of social media. You are just campaigning to protect children on social media, children that have been so bullied that they take their own lives. And then you go and elevate this person elevate, Meghan's favorite word, by putting them, you're giving this person credibility by putting them on your show. You're endorsing this person by putting them on your show. And like you just pointed out, this is the same person that bullied a child, a 16-year-old kid, who now says that they were groomed. You're endorsing them by having them standing next to you on your show. Your actions don't match your words.
Well, this has been Meghan's problem since day one. And we all see her grasping for anything that will sort of reinforce this notion that she is welcomed among fellow famous people. You know, there's this idea that I think that she holds, which is so completely immature and sad, frankly, that like, well, if somebody's famous, they must be a great person to know. I mean, I can point to any number of examples where it's actually the exact opposite. And people who often get to that level of fame have left a lot of bodies in their wake. You know, there's a ruthlessness that comes with that is not appealing. And it's all we see with her right now. I mean, again, with every sort of first of all, my question is, she announced, oh, we're renewed for season 2, right? That's not a renewal. Like, they shot the whole thing at once and then they chopped it up, and they got to burn off the rest of it in the fall. But is she shooting additional episodes? Because this Chrissy Teigen announcement feels very like breaking news, right? Like, why wasn't she included in the initial rollout? Like, if she had Chrissy, why not front load her in the beginning? Because the only other real name Meghan had, was Mindy Kaling.
I think that those are the only 2 names she had in this whole thing other than Prince Harry. And Prince Harry apparently is not seen at all in season 2, which I don't think is going to bode well, because there are people like me that now have no reason to watch it. I told you the last time this came out, I was instructed to watch 3 episodes to react to Prince Harry's presence or mention in those episodes. I don't even think I'll be able to tolerate season 2, round 2, without any Prince Harry. And that is your only currency.
It is her only currency. And I just don't know what she's doing, because in anticipation of coming on to talk to you, I did listen to a little bit of the latest podcast.
Oh my God. You and I both, I was about to jump out the window.
Okay, Kinsey, I started off with my earbuds in, and within 2 minutes, I was like, I cannot physically have her voice this close, like in my ear canal. I have to remove the earbuds and put it on speaker and move it a little bit away. This is how like revolting I find her, and she's talking a bunch of garbage to some woman who founded a makeup line, a woman who, by the way, comes from enough money that she says to her mother, I know you're saving up for all of our weddings. So this woman's put aside like $100K for each kid. She comes from money. Give me my money so I can have my seed money. But she's talking about bootstrapping and like struggling and spare me. Okay.
Yeah, both of them are like that, though. Like, both of them are not, eating out of a dumpster because are not able to pay their rent because they're so emotionally invested in these brands. Meghan Markle is in the position she's in because of the man she married. Yeah, you're talking about Kitsch founder Cassandra Thurswell. I secretly love the fact that they have sent me a bunch of free swag, because I'm like, and you were friends with Meghan and I'm getting free swag. Clearly you don't know what my day job is.
Oh, kidding.
But it says, speaking to her guest, because Meghan made it all about herself yet again, Meghan revealed how she likes to show up for people, with this gesture extending over to her business as ever. She also talked about how she always imagined having her kid on her hip doing speeches, and how her circumstances changed that direction. They discussed the struggle of balancing their parenting duties with growing their business. We just found out Meghan has a nanny. Well, are we really supposed to be able to relate to this woman, who also, I think Doria Ragland almost lives with them full time as well? She has plenty of help. I'm sorry, but you don't fit in this category of like boss girl, working mom who's about to pull her hair out, when you've got plenty of people to help you juggle it all.
Yeah, I don't believe there's only one nanny.
Yeah.
There are multiple nannies. I think there are multiple handlers. The household staff is vast, I believe. What's also really interesting about, the show is so boring to listen to, and the only thing that is remotely like interesting are these little tells that Meghan gives about what a freaking, my opinion, malignant narcissist she is. She tells us that she has known this woman since they were both sort of struggling in their respective industries, and was introduced to her at age like 23 or 24. This woman came over to help her figure out how to dress. If she's any good at it, none of the lessons stuck, because we just keep looking at Meghan in these like billowing pants that are the hems are dragging all over the place. Okay. And the clothes are wrinkled and whatever. And so she says, so Cassie, and then Cassie goes, it's so funny, Meghan, shades of, I'm Sussex now. It's so funny you call me Cassie, because like the only people in my life who call me that are my closest family members. So it's a little cut. It's a little like you're assuming a familiarity with me that you don't have and hasn't been earned, right? And then Meghan goes, oh, well, I just love that I'm one of the people who can call you that, because, we've known each other for so long. And then it comes out that Meghan knew none of this woman's backstory.
Yeah.
She's like, oh, I didn't know any of that. You didn't know because you didn't ask her one single freaking question about herself, because you only are interested in people to the extent that they can redound to your benefit in some way. You know, it's ridiculous.
Do you think that this will last? I mean, I'm not disparaging Limonada Media, but it's not like Spotify where the return on investment is so important, having cut them such a significant check or original deal. I think Limonada is kind of like a go with the flow kind of place, and the name association in their mind benefits them. I feel like they might, as long as she's not difficult, and we know she was at Spotify, calling in, demanding changes, at the very last minute, them having to pull the episode, re-upload it, 17 freaking producers for one show. Do you think that as long as she's not difficult, Lemonada will allow her to kick this can? Because I'm with you. I think that the content is almost painful. There's nothing enjoyable when it comes to Confessions of a Female Founder. I don't believe she's friends with any of these people in real life because she's so awkward in the way she communicates. So you don't get that. Like, people message me all the time. They say they can tell that we love each other. We do. We're comfortable with each other. We're not frigid,
Right.
I just don't know if there's any value in this from a PR perspective. I'm sure Lemonada's like, oh, it's brand recognition for us, but it just seems like such a waste.
God, what I would give to see those numbers. Like, what I would give to see the analytics, because they can tell down to the second how engaged an audience is when they're tuning out, when they're coming back. Like, I would kill. And this is why I've ceased to feel sorry anymore for anybody who gets in business with these two. You know exactly what you're getting. You know it. Yeah. So if you take a hit, it's on you. Okay. Now, the problem with, I'm always diagnosing Meghan, but she's sort of she's just like one of those patients. There was this famous book written in the 40s called The Mask of Sanity, and it was by a doctor who kind of figured out there's this portion of the population that is psychopathic, and they cannot be treated. They're resistant to any kind of treatment. And I view Meghan as kind of just completely treatment resistant on any level, right? There's no amount of advice she will take. There's no amount of scolding that will humble her. There's no lesson she will learn that will cause her to course correct, nothing. But I think the foundational sediment of her problem is that she has zero sense of humor. Zero. And if you don't have a sense of humor, you have nothing for anybody to latch onto, to relate to you about. You can't laugh at yourself. You take yourself so seriously. Why do you take yourself so seriously? You're on this planet for a nanosecond. Enjoy. She can't. And I think that is her fun. And so when she's doing these things like, oh, I was just looking at my old report. Who looks at their old report cards? Or, oh, that was so funny. That was so funny. You're like, it's all fake. It's real.
I think you're the first person I've ever heard say that about how she has no sense of humor and how detrimental that is, truly, because we all talk about authenticity, and that is of course at the core, yes, but it is, have laugh at something sincere, laugh at something genuine. Prince Harry used to. And there's the story of them going on the shooting weekend and her scolding him and his friends because she didn't like the jokes that they were telling. And he hasn't hung out with a lot of those people since then because she was so horrified by their sense of humor and the way that they engaged with each other, which is sad for him. And we could see that when he was randomly knocking on doors that he feels so deflated. But it's almost, I said for a couple of years, these two need to adopt self-deprecation and people might tolerate them a little bit better. But I think it's too late in the game now. I think if we saw that now, we'd be like, oh God, just stop trying. You gave the example of the bridge, London Bridge, and Meghan just like careening into it. Like, I'm shoving myself on you. I'm not going to stop. And that's kind of how it is now. Even if they tried to go the self-deprecation route and like make a joke out of it all, we'd be like, could you just stop? We just need some air. You guys are, I feel a restraining order coming on me against you. Leave me alone.
Yes, so by the way, Kinsey, when I saw that footage this weekend, this was like breaking news here in New York.
Yeah.
A Mexican Navy ship with like a huge mast and all of these billowing sails careened itself right into the Brooklyn Bridge. And it just, you saw the ship go, like it just fell apart. The bridge is the immovable object, but the ship just keeps on going. Like it's smashing and it keeps on going. And in my mind, I saw that. I said, Meghan Markle is the ship and the Brooklyn Bridge is the rest of us.
Yes.
And she's going to keep smashing into us with her repeated attempts to be successful and well liked. And we are going to completely gray rock and resist it. You can smash up against our rock as much as you want. It's not happening, sister. Okay.
Oh.
And by the way, that anecdote about the hunting weekend, such a good hang that, Meghan, right? You know, like, oh, Harry's like, I'm bringing Meghan. Everybody's like, Jesus Christ. Did you ever hear the rumor, and you would be the person to know, that at some point in their courtship, like he was getting second thoughts. He was really like, I don't know about this. He was beginning to put distance between them, and there was a wedding of one of Harry's closest friends, like in Jamaica, and she wasn't invited, but she showed up anyway.
I did not hear that she wasn't invited, but she showed up anyway. But I heard that there was tension there.
It's interesting. I think the truth is somewhere in the middle, maybe.
Yeah, no, I think it's worth looking up. Like, I hesitate to believe that there were second thoughts because she kept threatening him. I'm going to leave you if you don't. Valentine Lowe writes about this, I believe, in Courtiers, and he's got a new book coming out. And Valentine Lowe says that she threatened, when he initially announced their relationship, it was because she said, we do this and you tell everybody I'm with you. And remember, she's this little old girl on a cable show suit. Right. Like, I'm sure it is. And she's an influencer. I'm sure it's killing her that she can't tell the world that she bagged this guy, because she's been hustling her entire life for fame. And this, she knows, is going to take her to the next level. So word gets out that, they get a call allegedly on like the night after Halloween or the night after a Halloween party. And allegedly she's like, we tell them, we say we're together, or I'm done. I don't want to hide anymore. Then she, according to Valentine Lowe, threatens to leave him if he doesn't come out and defend her from some of the coverage, the tabloid coverage she doesn't like in the UK. And I remember having to cover this in Sacramento as a local news anchor, being like, what? We had to cover that Harry was defending her from racism. And at the time, I don't even think that some of the examples that they give existed yet. I think that there were a couple of headlines, which I do not, straight out of Compton. It was just stupid. It was just dumb. But, there were a couple of instances where she threatened to leave him. And a part of the reason why I don't believe that he had any second thoughts is because she created a real fear of abandonment in him that she knew he was already struggling with because of his mom.
Right.
So I don't know. I feel like he was always like, I don't want to lose her. I don't want to lose her. I don't want to lose her. I feel like we still see that today.
So the Sunday Times Rich List is out, and I saw your name on it. No, I didn't actually see your name on it. But the King is on it, and his wealth has gone up.
Yes, it looks through his investments. Now, this is an area that can be quite controversial for the royal family, because he doesn't pay inheritance tax on after the Queen died. He didn't pay inheritance tax, and I think it's seen his portfolio increase substantially, and that's why he is suddenly
30 million up.
Yeah, so which is obviously his investors are presumably doing a good job, but he also gets money from the Duchy of Lancaster, which also showed a profit as well. So it is an area that obviously can get the royal family in hot water. These are all historical sort of over the years, and has built up the royal family's wealth. And obviously it is an area with obviously straitened times within government and saving money, looking at what they get as state funding to maintain their status, but also with the fact that he's an extremely rich man in his own right. So it is something they have to navigate again, sort of, with the general public, and appear that they are leading a frugal and proper life and not actually frittering the money away. But obviously that's why you can probably suddenly see that they will help out Prince Harry with his security arrangements originally. So it is an area that can cause them problems. But at the moment, the wealth is being managed, but actually they've got to make sure that they are seen to not be taking too much when they need funding from the government to run the royal household. We do know, David, that they do generate significant sums for PLC GB from just the tourist point of view, but on a personal level, you've got to look, well, what can he afford to, and how do they manage that, given the fact that his wealth is increasing at this present time?
I'm just looking at this. So the late Queen, her wealth was 370 million in 2022. So he's gone up 270 million in 3 years. That's not bad going, is it?
No, it's not bad going, and that's what I mean. You know, particularly when we're in times that are, you know, a lot of people are struggling. If the royal family are seen to be going in the other direction almost, it's not an easy one. So it is something I'm sure they're very mindful of, and I know the king actually is mindful of it. But these are, you know, historic well, it's been in the family for a long time, and it is. But obviously, things like not paying inheritance tax will, you know, upset a few people, saying, well, why shouldn't they, given that everybody else does?
Or abolish it completely, Rupert. That's what I would prefer.
Inheritance tax.
Yeah.
Well, that I think some people might agree with you there. Yes, I know exactly what you're. But you know, because people would say, "Well, I've worked hard. Why have I got to give it away?
You've already paid tax."
Yeah, exactly. So I'm not too far away from where you're thinking, David. There, I do think that I could never wear that shirt, though. But anyway, sorry, David.
It's a bit slim-fitting for you, Rupert. Also, the king is now on the same line as Rishi Sunak and his wife, Akshat Murthy. Yeah.
Well, and I think that's probably she's from a very rich family in her own right.
She is.
But it's interesting, and he's still an MP. And again, you know, you think, well, why did he want to put himself through it when he's basically didn't need to, being a prime minister and everything? And actually, I think there's a serious point here. You know, sometimes you need your politicians. I know that it may be extremely rich, but you need them that almost can afford to do it at times, or know they're doing it for the right reasons. And, you know, whatever you think of Rishi Sunak as Prime Minister, he still did his best. He may have left the Conservative Party in a bit of a confusing state. But I'm again going off piste here. So,
well, maybe. I mean, certainly with all your wealth, maybe you should be going to the politics and become a member of Parliament.
I've got better things to do with my time, David. Actually,
you're far too busy.
I like coming to Madrid and not being told what to do by some spin doctor. But there we go.
Well, I did have some of our viewers reach out, very excited about the King's upcoming visit to Canada. The itinerary was recently revealed. Hugo, this will be an exciting moment for royal watchers all over the world when it comes to the King and Queen's visit to Canada. Can you tell me a little bit about the King's relationship with Canada and why this is a unique opportunity for Canadians to see him in person?
Yes, well, it's very important because he's King of Canada and he hasn't been able to get over to Canada because of his illness until now. And it's even more important that he should go now because Trump has been talking about Canada becoming the 51st state, which is a bit rude considering how big Canada is. And Canada will always want to have a monarch because it's the one thing which they really have over the United States. And years gone by, Sir Archibald Nye, who was the High Commissioner, wrote a rather sort of apologetic letter back to London saying the Queen Mother had just been there for a week, and 1 week of the Queen Mother had achieved more for Canada than they'd been able to achieve in the whole of the year, he said rather amazingly. So I think it's very important that the King should go there, and he'll be very popular. It's a very short trip, but he will open Parliament, which is, of course, significant. The Queen did it a couple of times, and if the King is there, he can do that as King of Canada. He will travel in an open carriage from Rideau Hall into Ottawa, and it'd be very exciting. I think he'll be very popular.
Tessa, this will be the 20th time that the King visits Canada and the 6th for Queen Camilla. Do you know how they prioritize who they visit? You know, Hugo just mentioned Donald Trump's comments about Canada. Would that be a decision maker? I mean, do they think about?
For sure.
Oh wow. Go ahead and elaborate.
Yeah, basically the institution of monarchy is a sort of part of our diplomatic armory, an institution of state, and it's deployed where it's most needed. And the king is, I mean, he's a finite asset and he's a fragile asset. So we're not going to waste him. We're not going to sort of splurge him on, I don't know, America at the moment. Actually, Trump's going to have to come to us. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yes.
But the king will go to countries where, of course, he is head of state, titular, as he is in Canada. He was gutted not to have been able to include New Zealand in his trip to Australia last year. He takes it very seriously, that role, as the titular head of some 14 other countries, and rightly so. And you'll notice he's also deployed in Europe. He's addressed the French Senate, where he went down a storm, got a standing ovation. Likewise in Italy, very recently, just caught the tail end of the last Pope, Francis. And I think that this is about binding hearts and minds in Europe, because we know Britain's had a slightly rocky relationship with Europe, but and with particularly being deployed in Canada, because it's about cementing that relationship between our other Atlantic partner, Canada, and Britain, and then the bridge across the two. In other news, Macron, Keir Starmer, and Mark Carney, the new Canadian Premier, stood shoulder to shoulder on Israel just a couple of nights ago. I think we can expect them to be working increasingly closely together. We know they are with regards to Ukraine. And this, by the way, is all in response to Trump, or a huge amount of it is in response to Trump. It's incredible, I think, and I'd be interested to know Hugo's opinion, the way in which Trump has softened and improved so many leaders' images, and I include the king. He now seems like the sort of benevolent monarch, the thinking man's philosopher king. You know, forget ideas that he might be, you know, an uncaring father or some, you know, unelected head of state. No. Now we cast him as this kind of caring, cool guy, I think, don't we?
Well, I think he is that. I mean, he's always been very compassionate, and I also think he's a very compassionate father, frankly. He doesn't always get that response from his children, or from one of his sons anyway. But the thing is that he, of course, became a new person when he became king, and that was what was so interesting. Up until then, in a funny way, he was a sort of interfering Prince of Wales. If he came out with his views on this and that, people thought, well, are these the right things? But suddenly, of course, as a head of state, you know, he was to meet Biden, Macron, particularly Macron. He talks to him a lot, you know, one to one. It was part of the deal, if he goes over, that they would have conversations. And then, of course, you get all his experience, because he goes right back. You know, he was, what was he, 73 or something when he became king, and he'd met, you know, he's met Eisenhower and Churchill and all these people, Nixon and all these people over the years. And so he's got a lot to offer.
I do think that it's naive to assume he's operating, if you like, in a vacuum. The relationship with Canada has been drawn into sharp relief precisely because of what's been going on in America. Mark Carney, of course, a keen relationship, married to an English woman, previously head of the Bank of England, you know, is already an Anglophile. And it makes sense to double down on that relationship. We saw he hosted Trudeau, the outgoing Canadian Premier, in Sandringham very recently in the wake of the Trump bust-up. And I think it's partly because of that he can go with fresh wings and gusto, if you like, to Canada. Because I know Hugo is, we're both monarchists. I'm monarchist light, Hugo's monarchist heavy, right? And I think that Hugo, you know, oh, Canada love the king. There's a large lump of Canada, just polling under about 50% prior to the arrival of Trump, that wasn't actually that keen on having a British monarch as their head of state. And that, I think, has been cast in a different light now.
I don't know if it's because I had to cover the 2016 elections against my will, or if it's just because President Trump has become such a regular personality in, you know, in American sphere, pop culture wise. He was the host of The Apprentice. He was always in the newspapers, the New York Post. He had such a great relationship with him. What gorgeous girl was on his arm? What piece of real estate was he purchasing? I am almost numb to some of the things he says when he was on Twitter. You know, every day it was a new tweet. So I'm surprised, Hugo, to hear that something he might say about Canada that I assume is just Trump being Trump could inspire such a big visit.
Well, I think what Tessa was saying, and in a sense what you're saying, is Trump seems to be sort of doing a great job in unifying everybody else, possibly against or as a result of the things that he says. I mean, he certainly doesn't hesitate to weigh in at every possible moment. But I think it's an important time for the king to go there and to remind Canada of his affection for them and his devotion to Canada and what he can offer Canada. I think it's a very good thing that he's going, and I'm sure he'll be very popular.
If you think Trump isn't just hot air, he delivered those tariffs and he slapped heavy ones on Canada. He rescinded temporarily some of the Ukrainian military support. And of course, Canada are a keen member of NATO. So we need to double down and remind the world that, we're going to maintain those relationships, including with Canada, even and especially if America's playing rookie. It's playing outside the pitch. So I think there's real threats coming from America, previously the most dependable ally in the Western sphere. And I think it's right that the king gives it a bit of gloss, but I hope we get more than that from it. I would like to see an improved trade deal with Canada, between Britain and Canada. And I would like to see a more committed strategic policy from the two as well.
Yeah, Hugo, the last time a sovereign delivered this speech from the throne in Canada was the late Queen Elizabeth in 1977. Is it going, as we deal with King Charles aging, not to mention his cancer, are we going to see more gaps like this where we go such an extended period of time without having special moments like this?
I think that there's something to do with etiquette, that he has to be the first one in the reign to go over there. So hopefully now that once he's been 26th of May and next week, actually at the end of this week, I mean, let's hope that that means that then, that Prince William can go and others can go and there can be more visits to Canada, because the royal family have a lot of connections with Canada. They always have done, and they do go a lot and quite often. And so I think that's right. But I think I'm right in saying that there was this problem that he had to be the first one, and of course it all got delayed because of his illness.
Mm-hmm. Tessa, my grandpa is from Canada, and he still remembers so sweetly, like he loves to tell the story. He's told it to me multiple times, of being a little boy, living out in the middle of nowhere and seeing Queen Elizabeth pass by and her rolling the window down and waving at them, and how much it meant to them. I mean, it's going to mean so much to people to actually get a glimpse of the king and queen, don't you think?
Huge. And lest we forget, the Queen, when she was the Duchess of Edinburgh, went with Philip for a popover to Canada when the King George VI was very ill. And I think, was that one of Elizabeth's first flights, Hugo? There was huge concern over the flight to Canada, and that this might imperil our future monarch.
There was huge concern because she was originally going to go by ship, and the fact was that, of course, because the king had been so ill, they had to postpone the trip to Canada. So yes, there was a lot of discussion, but they wanted to get her there quickly. So that was a complication.
And Philip, desperate to get in the air, he's going to have none of it. He was heavily pushing to be airborne, because we know that he was this frustrated pilot. And they arrived, but the write-ups were very much gauche princess, the sort of attention and recognition. And then, of course, they had a little brief stopover as well in America, and it spent about 3 days over in America. And all the headlines were favoured Philip, that he was this kind of dashing guy with the confidence, and she was much more. They didn't use the word mousy, but they might have done. So it's interesting just how almost the crown helps both the late Queen and the King grow into their role. You talked of Charles being seen as a bit of a busybody or interfering. As soon as you acquire the trappings of kingship or queenship, it really is transformative. You grow into the role.
We've had a pretty busy last few months when it comes to the working royals. It's been so nice to see Prince William and Catherine, the Princess of Wales, out and about. You've mentioned cancer. We were told at the start of this year that Catherine was in remission, but we should be patient and manage our expectations when it comes to how often we see her. I've been pleasantly surprised by the amount we've seen her. Would you agree?
I really would. I felt the same as you, sort of at the start of the year when we were told she was going to be coming back gradually, that actually we've seen far more of her than I think we might ever have expected, both on her own, and then together with Prince William, that wonderful trip just recently to the Isle of Mull and Iona up in Scotland, which was their first away trip. I think it's going to be ambitious to sort of see them do anything too long haul, too far afield. But I think that trip to Scotland, and we've got another one coming up actually next week, which I know we're going to hit on later on in the show. But I think that's just really positive, and I think it's them sending out a message that they are back to work. The princess is doing something that she is really passionate about. And I was reading in the paper reports today that her early years project has now reached 500,000 people in the UK, which is a huge number. It's showing the outreach of the early years work that she does. And I think, for all of us to see her at these important events, whether that's trooping, of course, we saw her make her sort of comeback last June, just a tentative comeback, but to have seen her at the VE Day commemorations, very much front and central at the royal family, and of course with the children as well on the day of the procession and the fly past at Buckingham Palace, it sort of feels like things have gotten back to normal. Behind the scenes, of course, the princess is making sure the focus is firmly on her family and on her health, and as she said in her own words, on staying cancer free. But I think it's wonderful to see them both out. Prince William was busy last week. One of the things that he was doing was investitures, and of course, as the Prince of Wales, he's very much leaned on by the King. The King can't do all of the investitures. I mean, he has the support of the Queen, and he's got the support of the Princess Royal and the Duke and Duchess of Edinburgh. They all do it, but this investiture was really, really lovely. This was William presenting an OBE to Wendy Daunt. Now, Wendy Daunt is just a regular person. She voluntarily teaches deaf studies at the Royal School for the Deaf in Derby, and she was appointed OBE at a really lovely ceremony in Windsor. And she gave an interview to the BBC in which she talked about the experience of being presented with the OBE. And anyone that's seen an investiture knows that it is a very formal affair. And, you usually see a member of the royal family presenting a medal, and, the recipient bows their head or they might curtsy. And there's a sort of always there is always a formality to it. But on this occasion, Wendy Daunt asked the prince for a hug, and she had told him about her experience of Princess Diana meeting a group of deaf people and how Diana had communicated in sign language and how much that did for the deaf community in the UK. And this obviously really moved William, and they had a proper conversation. It's not just here's your medal, off you go. There was a conversation in which she asked if he might consider getting some of their children, George possibly, to start learning sign language. And there was obviously a lovely connection between the two of them, and it ended in this sort of wonderfully warm and I think slightly unconventional moment. It's not that William isn't a hugger. I've seen him hug people before, but in that sort of formal environment at an investiture at Windsor Castle, it was unusual. And yet it just felt very warm, very natural. And I think, Kinsey, I don't know about your feeling, but certainly my feeling about the Prince of Wales is he's seamlessly stepped into this role as future king, as Prince of Wales. And he's done it. He's done it with grace and with warmth and with compassion. And I just feel like we know William so much better. We've got to know him so much better in the last couple of years since the accession and the transition. And we're sort of understanding him better as a person. And I love it that even in this sort of formal setting, he's not afraid to let his guard down and give someone a great big hug. And, it makes a great picture, and I think makes him feel all the more relatable too.
Wendy has got some moxie because she says, well, in the deaf community, we prefer hugs over handshakes. And he totally embraces that. I love that about him. Yeah, just to see this growth, because you covered Prince William when I was just an observer, and there were a lot of whispers about this reluctant prince, this prince that really just was resentful of this position. And that is not, and even in some of Prince Harry's interviews, he makes it sound that way. My father and my brother are trapped. Prince William seems so grateful today. He seems so eager, and just to be appreciative of the experiences that he's in. I never see a reluctant prince when he's whether he's dealing with homewards or whether he's at a sporting event. He just seems so confident and comfortable in his skin and in his position, which I think we should celebrate after all of those years of whispers of this person that didn't necessarily allegedly want the job.
I think, I think there was certainly a point in his life. And, when I go back to the very first book I wrote back in 2010, which was the William and Harry book, I remember speaking to people who'd spent quite a lot of their gap year with William, whether it was in Chile and then at university. And there was definitely a sense. And of course, remember, he was 18, 19, 20 at the time, very much a sense, as you might expect at that young age, that he sort of wasn't ready for that, burden of duty that was going to weigh very heavily on him, and slightly envious of all his undergraduates who were making exciting plans for their future. When, of course, his future was and always has been predestined and mapped out for him. But I think you're absolutely right. I think there has been not even just an acceptance, but a willingness to embrace, with an open heart, what he's got to do. And I do think the last couple of years have felt transformative in terms of his progress, his transition, his acceptance of the role that is going to come to him. We know that he's so close to his father. I mean, as his relationship with Harry has come to, to be, well, certainly with William and Harry at loggerheads, and certainly strained between Charles and Harry. The relationship between William and Charles is a very strong one. And there is just, I'm told by people who know them both, not only do they speak at least once a day on the phone, which, they never used to, they're absolutely aligned on this idea of kingship, on what monarchy is, on the fact that monarchy needs to and absolutely must continue. It's not going to fizzle out with William. It's not going to fizzle out with George. This is a dynasty that they want to continue. And I think all of that has made them very aligned and has made William very driven and duty bound. But what I love are these light-hearted moments, like I say, where you might expect formality, and yet he brings a sense of joy and happiness and informality to the occasion, which feels totally appropriate. And I think, and it feels modern. It feels different. It feels fresh. And I think in this age of monarchy, where many people might question the idea of a hereditary monarchy, that actually being real, feeling relatable, connecting to members of the public the way that they do, actually makes them incredibly popular and makes people think, you know what, they're a really good thing for our country.